they, you know, all of this stuff that is something that they live and breathe. And then some people may never have heard of auto shaping at all. So just feel free to ask questions, because this talk's going to be a little bit different from the last talk in that it's going to be kind of theory heavy. I know, sorry, but okay, it's actually very simple. It's a simple concept. So I'm going to read you the APA's definition of auto shaping. They say auto shaping is a form of conditioning in which a subject that has been given reinforcement following a stimulus, regardless of its response to that stimulus, consistently performs an irrelevant behavior. The classic example is the pigeon that receives food after a light goes on, then conditions itself to peck at the light even though the pecking is not necessary to receive the food. So I hate this definition, because even though I know what auto shaping is, when I read it, it just scrambles my brain. That definition makes me feel like I don't know what auto shaping really is. So I'm going to tell you my definition of auto shaping, and then I want to make sure that it's clear before we go on. So in auto shaping, it starts with the presentation of a neutral stimulus. So of course, my dog is barking now. A neutral stimulus, so something that doesn't have any meaning to the animal. So you would present the neutral stimulus to the animal, and just like in every conditioning process, you'd also show unconditioned stimulus. That's something that, an unconditioned stimulus is something that the animal doesn't have to learn to have a response to, like food or water or play, things that are just like naturally, you know, they're naturally meaningful for the dog. So you have your neutral stimulus and you have your unconditioned stimulus. And so eventually, if you pair them, like in Pavlovian conditioning or classical conditioning, then the animal is going to start to associate the unconditioned stimulus, the neutral stimulus with the unconditioned stimulus. So the neutral stimulus becomes a conditioned stimulus, and then it is paired with the unconditioned stimulus. And what happens is that sometimes the animal starts to show instinctive behaviors that are related to that. So, and they show those behaviors, and they're going to get that unconditioned stimulus no matter what their behaviors are. So let me talk to you about it in terms of like something that really happens, so you can understand. Instead of saying stimulus, 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 I'm gonna tell you about like the classic example of auto shaping. So when auto shaping was first kind of documented, was in regards to pigeons, and they would have a pigeon who was hungry in an enclosure, and they had a key, and it's like a key that's like a kind of like a lever that the pigeon can peck and push the button, and they would light the key up, and no matter what the pigeon did, the pigeon would get food. So the key would light up and the pigeon would get food no matter what the pigeon was doing. But because pigeons naturally want to peck at things when they're thinking about food, whenever the light would turn on the key, the pigeon would start pecking at the key. And you know, regardless of what was going on from the pigeon, the food was still going to come. So that pecking behavior was reinforced. So it starts out as a process of classical conditioning, and it turns into an operant process. Okay, so in the lab setting, the same thing can happen, except they call it auto shaping because there's a little bit more purpose to it. So they'll have the key lights up, and then the food comes as the key is presented, the food comes in at different intervals. So the food's dropping through the hopper, the key is lit up, and then the key turns off. And then the key turns on, and then the food comes out, and the pigeon's eating, and then the key turns off. eventually the pigeon starts pecking at the key, and then the lab assistants actually reinforce that behavior by feeding the pigeon food. So in this case, it's more purposeful because they're doing that shaping. That's why they call it auto shaping, because you would have the lab attendees there like shaping the behavior of pecking on the key. Does that make sense? Everybody looks, yeah, some people are nodding. Good. Okay, good. Anybody, who does not have an idea? Anybody lost? Okay. Okay, so that's what auto shaping is. And why do we care about auto shaping? It's because it's something that we use a lot at the shelter. So when I think of auto shaping, the first thing I think about is when we're conditioning head halters, and we show the dog the head halter, because we eventually want the dog to like put their nose through the head halter. So we show the dog the head halter. It doesn't matter what the dog does. We give them some food. We show them the head halter. It doesn't matter what the dog does. We give them some food. Eventually, when we show them the head halter, the dog touches it. It just happens every single time without exception. The dog's going to touch the head halter with their face because they associate the head halter with food, and they're going to treat it like food. So did you guys watch the raccoon video that I posted the other day? I posted it yesterday. I'll post it again, because a really, really famous example of auto shaping was in the Brelands, and Marion Breland and Bob Bailey wrote the paper called The Misbehavior of Animals. Do you guys remember that? Do you guys remember The Misbehavior of Animals? I see Anne is smiling.
Yeah.
What is it?
Nope.
Okay, nobody remembers? Okay, so The Misbehavior of Animals came from Bob Bailey's animal training company. So, Bob Bailey and Marion Breland Bailey, his wife, worked with B.F. Skinner. They were his students, more or less. And so they had a company that trained animals for, they trained them for the government. They were, they made those cat spies that recorded conversations, and they trained crows to take photos of people. And one of the things that they trained animals to do was for commercials. They trained a raccoon to like pick up some coins and put them in a bank. It was for the commercial for a bank. And so the raccoon was supposed to pick up the coins and put them in the slot, and they would get their food. But they started associating the coin so strongly with the food that they started to show instinctive behaviors towards the coins as if they themselves were food. So what did the raccoons do? Come on, Joe.
Try to eat the coin.
They watched it?
What?
They started watching them?
Yeah, they started. So like when raccoons are preparing to eat something, they like wash them, they lick them, they clean them. So in German, you call raccoons wash bears because they're always like washing stuff, right? So the raccoons could not, after a while, they wouldn't be able to put the coins into the bank because they would get so distracted by the coins. So in the video, it shows this behavior. They also tried to teach pigs to deposit coins into the bank, but and at first it would go well, but then once the pigs started associating the coins with food, they started rooting the coins because they didn't want to pick them up and put them in the bank anymore. They just wanted to root them. So we can think about like how we can use auto shaping and how we can't use auto shaping when we think about the misbehavior of animals. So think about some things that we can do. So in the handout I gave you, I told you like a couple of different examples of things that we do in the shelter. So when we have fearful cats, we train them to approach and touch our hand. So I use auto shaping for that. So let's say that you hold out your hand and you're far enough away that it's a neutral stimulus. and then you give the scared cat a treat, like you toss them a treat. And then you hold out your hand, and then you toss them a treat. And you do this over and over again, and then when the cat starts to associate your hand with the food, they'll start to treat it like food, so they'll start to approach it. That's why another name for auto-shaping is Pavlovian conditioned approach, because invariably approach is part of these conditioned behaviors. So can you think of any other things that where auto-shaping comes to play in the shelter, or just in any training exercises?
Touch.
In touch? Oh yeah, you can use touch. Yeah, sure. You can use auto-shaping with touch, right? Like you don't have to, you don't have the dog touch your hand right away. You can just offer your hand and give them the treat. And the interesting thing is in the labs, so we primarily train hand targeting with, you know, through targeting. Like our targeting is a kind of operant, and we don't usually use auto shaping. But in the lab, auto shaping is faster than other operant conditioning techniques. So that's one advantage of using auto shaping, is that it's a faster process. Can anybody else think of any other situation where we might use things?
The blood draws that you're doing, I guess? I don't know.
The what?
The blood draws, like for Coolio and for the injections that y'all do for
Maybe
meds.
you do. Can you describe to me like what you mean? How would auto shaping potentially play in that situation?
So that they're more comfortable, and that would be their terms on when they're comfortable on receiving, like when getting pricked by the needle, like how Julio would go in between the legs to get the blood draw from his neck, because Reggie also does that sometimes.
I don't know. I mean, potentially, I think so. I think it's. I'm trying to think of a specific way that auto shaping would play a role, but I can't really think of it. But it doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means that I can't think of like how you specifically use auto shaping. So in auto shaping, when you're making a behavior plan around auto shaping, you would think about behaviors that are possible. So it really depends on the type of unconditioned stimulus that you're using. So usually that would be the reward. But when I was thinking about it, you can use auto shaping with punitive training. So I was thinking about how shock collar trainers use when they train recalls, right? Like, can somebody tell me about that? Because I know we've talked about that before in training. Like, how would a shock collar trainer do it?
I haven't done this training before, but I used to have the shock wires, the underground fence out in the country, so that the animal, when they get close to it, it starts beeping. And if they stay close to it, then it eventually gives them a little shock. So they learn not to go to that area. So
the beep could be like the neutral stimulus, and the shock could be the unconditioned stimulus. So what would the dogs do if they heard the beep?
They would immediately run back.
Right, okay. So it's like the instinctive behavior is to flee, right? And so if you, my gosh, the dogs just threw stuff everywhere. Sorry, come here. They just threw my phone and charger and all sorts of stuff everywhere. So usually when you're training with a shock collar or recalls, but also the same with a fence, which we wouldn't do obviously, but it's good to know how these things work, is you would have, so if it were the fence, you would have the beep, and when the dog hears the beep, they would be shocked. And it's not necessarily contingent on their behavior. this is a negative reinforcement talk, so we're not going to get into it too much because it's a whole different thing. But anyway, there is that Pavlovian component there. There's the classical conditioning that's happening there, that when the dog hears that beep, they're going to show instinctive behaviors related to the shock, which is fleeing, right? And that fleeing is negatively reinforced by the safety, like basically the shock is taken away, and that reinforces the behavior of fleeing. Okay, so that's a little more complicated. Also, when you're teaching dogs to come on recall and you use a shock collar, you say come, and then you shock the dog, like regardless of what they're doing. So you say come, you shock the dog. The come command is the neutral stimulus, and then the shock is the unconditioned stimulus, and then the fleeing to you is the natural instinctive behavior that gets reinforced by taking away the shock. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so
it doesn't seem like it would work.
It doesn't seem like it would work. It works really well, actually. It works very well, and it's actually one of the types of training that's the most impervious to extinction. So it's very strong, and there's a very short period of latency. But the reason that we don't use it is there's some potential side effects. And it's just, you know, you could say that it's just cruel, but all of the, and that's fair to say too, but also there are potential unpleasant side effects from using that, those techniques. And the data shows that they don't necessarily work better than positive reinforcement behavior training. So anyway, okay, so when you're putting together a plan for auto shaping, the first thing you want to do is think about like the behavior that you want and whether you can get those behaviors in association with some kind of unconditioned stimulus. So usually our unconditioned stimuli or our reinforcers are food or play. So for Fox today, I'm going to use food. And think about, you know, instinctive behaviors that are related to food. So, you know, approaching, of course, sniffing, touching, putting your mouth on the food. For cats, it could be pawing. So those are the types of things that we could train with food. Now think about play. It's all of those things too. You know, it's approaching and it's approaching, possible mouthing, pawing, those types of things, but also with a little bit more arousal, a little bit faster. So think about what you might rather train with play. You know, maybe recalls, right? Because you would want a really fast, enthusiastic recall. And so when the dog's instinctive behaviors associated with play are things that are a little bit faster, right? And also think about your specific animals, right? Because there are some cats who do eat more with their paws. So if you were gonna train a paw-related behavior, maybe using food's better. Or maybe, you know, they're more likely to play with their paws and they eat more with their mouths. So if you wanted an animal, a cat, your cat specifically, to target something with their paw, maybe rather use play as a reinforcer. If you wanted to teach them to interact with something with their mouths, maybe use food as a reinforcer. So you see how, like, if you were going to use auto shaping, you kind of have to think a little bit about how the reinforcer would be related to the behavior that you wanted. Okay, so anybody have any questions now? I'm not really used to using this, so I can't.
Okay, well, I got distracted by my husband for a second, but so if you want them to stop biting at your ankles, that's a play thing. So you would want to associate it, or is it you would want to associate it with not a food thing, but more of a play thing? Is that what you're saying?
Okay, so it's a tough question. I don't know. It's a tough question because, first of all, I don't know why they're biting at the ankles. There are lots of different reasons. It's so funny because Emery and I just talked about this, about a dog that was biting at her legs when she was walking the dog. And there are a couple different reasons that a dog can do that. Like I can think of 3 different reasons off the bat. So I can't answer that question right away. But also if you wanted to train not biting at the ankles, so not the behavior that you can train, but you can train incompatible behaviors. Instead of biting at your ankle, we could teach the dog to like touch something with his muzzle. And in that case, you could use auto-shaping with a food thing. Or you know, maybe making eye contact with you. It might not be incompatible, but it would be highly unlikely that the dog would bite you and make eye contact with you. Like the dog's not likely to bite your ankles and make eye contact with you at the same time. It really depends on the situation. Okay, so if there's any questions on the theory, basically the strengths of auto-shaping are that it's pretty fast and it's a very simple process. You don't have to do a whole lot of thinking once you start training. And then the weaknesses are that the behaviors that you can train with auto-shaping are really limited to the instinctive behaviors that the animal will show related to the reinforcer. There are also, another kind of weaknesses, or not a weakness, but just a fact of the matter is that you would rarely use auto-shaping just by itself. So maybe for very, very simple behaviors, but like if I wanted Fox to pick up the ball, he will probably not do it because he's not a super high arousal dog. So he's not gonna like see food and think, he's not gonna wanna chomp at the ball. I mean, I don't know, it's possible. So there's like this, there's a part of the handout where, you know, I'm talking about how to teach animals how to interact with objects using auto-shaping. And there's a point where you have to decide, like, okay, am I done auto-shaping? Do I want to try shaping by successive approximation? Do I want to try luring now? Like, I've gotten as much as I can get. I've, you know, for example, I've been posting these videos about stationing, right? Like, one way that I could use auto-shaping with stationing is if I wanted the dogs to come up to the mat, I would put the mat out and just give them food no matter what they were doing, and then take it away. And then put it out and give them food, whatever they were doing, and take it away. So eventually through auto-shaping, they would come to associate the mat with food and they would approach the mat. So at that point, can I expect that they'll automatically, with more auto-shaping, go on the mat? Or at some point, am I going to start using shaping by successive approximation to get the dog to get on the mat? Or am I going to start using luring? Right? Those are all like questions that are separate from this talk. But I think it's important to know that you can use auto-shaping to get you partly up to something. And then it also is like a super case-by-case basis, because, you know, some dogs might, you know, their instinctive behaviors around food might include lying down. But like I was experiencing with my dog, Mama Dog, her instinctive behaviors related to food meant she did not want to lie down, right? So she was avoiding the mat that she would normally lie down on. Okay. So any questions about the theory? Let's get to the training because I know you'd all rather do that. So I've got some pretty high value food here. Fox has already been trained and he's eaten, so. And where's the ball? It's gone. Oh no, I grabbed a ball for you guys. Hold on, I'm gonna have to get a ball. But go ahead and grab your treats and get your item that you want to condition your animal to interact with.
Should we point out that there's a ball right there? Hey, Bruni, I'm gonna have to get off my back, buddy.
She's gone. Yeah, we could grab.
Oh, it was right there behind me the whole time. All right. All right, so tell me what you guys are going to use. Who's training an animal, and what are you going to use? It's a ball. Michelle's got a ball. I can't see all of you. We might have to like flip from person to person.
He's got a ball and some treats.
Okay, you've got cheese and tuna and a tennis ball.
So I've got hot dogs and a syringe, so I can maybe give Bruno his bordetella
Huh.
because it's oral.
Right. Okay.
All right, I don't have my dog with me right now. This is Jen, but I'll be doing a ball with chicken or hot dogs.
Okay. And Joe?
with
Ball.
ball, and I do have the chicken jerky blue, whatever the blue rhino thingy, and she loves it. Blue buffalo. Of course.
Nobody has a cat, or nobody is. I mean, I'm not disappointed. But.
Again, my cats are all sleeping.
Oh, okay.
This is their day to sleep.
My kids are really good too. Toys are really good for auto shaping. Obviously, we're not going to be shocking anybody. Okay, so basically, this is going to be super boring because it's classical conditioning. So I'm not really going to have him do anything. So basically, I have my resourcer here on the table. I'm not gonna put my hand on it or anything. It's kind of like out of the. It's it being on the table doesn't. The ball, and then I give him the treat. And I'm also kind of pulling the ball out from, I'm holding it in between my legs here so that he can't really see it. So just as important as the exposure to the ball and the treat is this break here where he's not seeing the ball. So then I'll take out the ball and give him a treat. So what I'm looking for is for when I pull out the ball, he starts brightening up and getting excited and maybe even approaching me. I might have to take the stationing mat away from him because he has done so much stationing. Okay, so go ahead and try this with your animals because it's a process. So notice that I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying like yes or anything like that. I'm just hanging out. And I want him to feel like he can do other things. So I took away the mat because that was narrowing down the behaviors that he was going to show. Okay, so let me see you guys. How do you flip from person to person? Some people's, it says the microphone is crossed out. Does that mean I can't hear them?
Yes, it means they've put themselves on mute, because if everybody's got their microphones on, like, you get a lot of feedback and a lot of noise.
So if you can just tell us to unmute one at a time, that would be good.
Oh, no, it's okay. I'm just figuring this thing out. So, Suzanne, how do I like see everybody? Can I do this? No. Something.
Let's flick. I can flick through them.
Yeah.
Go to gallery. Go to gallery view.
Yeah, let's see what everybody's doing. Gallery view.
Can you see everybody, Melissa?
I can, but I can't. How many people are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Oh, yeah, I can't see everybody.
Okay.
Some people don't have their cameras on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, can you like make the people who are training kind of big on the screen so we can see all of them?
Let me.
Oh, Fuji's already touching it. So let's look at Fuji.
Can you see?
Oh,
So look at who? Sorry, Bruno.
Fuji.
Fuji. Oh, Fuji, of course. She's a superstar.
Yeah, she's already doing it. Yeah.
Are they supposed to touch it when you show the ball, or just
They don't have to. So the so remember, this is a classical conditioning process. So what that means is that the animal technically doesn't have to do anything. That you just show them the ball, but we want them to eventually start.
already associating the ball with the food.
So the step one is just showing the ball and then giving them a treat. So so Fuji is already kind of figuring out that Joe wants something. I thought she was touching the ball, actually. Yes.
Oh, no, yes.
It's really important to kind of keep your hand away. Oh, nice. Keep your hand away from your food. Like when you're showing that ball, don't put your hand in the food. Stay away from that food because if you put your hand in the food, or if you go near the food, that's more salient than the object. I think I picked the wrong dog. He's like the laziest dog.
okay? So once you show the ball, then you reach for the food.
Yeah, exactly. Let me see. Can we see Michelle?
We have Chance.
We have Chance.
Chance, the little puppy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me see Michelle first.
Oh, Michelle, sorry. I thought you said the shelter. Oh.
Oh God. Did you see my dog? This is what he's doing now. He might be hopeless. I might have to use my other. Okay, so the ball, good. And then the food. Oh, so you're already getting some interaction. So at some point you can choose to start marking and rewarding behavior. Yes, good job. So what's your dog's name?
Her name's Minnie. She's a foster. She's about 4 months old.
Aw. Okay, so does she already?
She already fetches and sits.
So she's already kind of a ringer. But
yeah, she is. If
But
you
you
want
can-
me to get one that is not a ringer, I can get one of those too.
well, I mean, you can also teach Minnie to interact with something different that she doesn't normally interact with. Like I know that Fox doesn't like these balls. You can tell that it's going to take a while before he interacts with them. So I'm going to have to like keep working on it. But you know, for example, if you wanted to teach Minnie to hold a basket, to pick up a basket, with her, you know, the important thing is, you know, that in the beginning, you're not telling her anything. You're not really requiring her to do anything. You just the basket and then give her something. You can even like hold out the basket and then throw a ball for her because she already puts her mouth on the ball. She might associate the basket with, you know, that mouthing of the ball. And that could be the instinctive behavior.
It's true. I'm trying to think of what else I have that she can do.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see Chance then.
The ball now.
Where do we want to go? Sorry.
Chance?
Oh, Chance. No.
Oh, my lazy dog. Good job. That looks good.
Yes.
Technical difficulties.
I know.
Technical difficulties. I wish I could switch them. I can't do it.
No, I can. Oh, here we go. All right. Just got a bit of a crazy dog, so.
Oh, so Fox is starting to move towards the ball. That's good. Good. Oh, nice. I'm getting a reasonable behavior now.
Oh, sorry. I always say yes, something random.
At some point, you will say yes. So when do you start doing that? You know, I really think it depends on your animal, right? Like I didn't think that Fox would come right up and touch the ball because he's kind of a lazy guy. So he was thinking that he'd just lie there and get treats. So that means that I will mark a behavior that is earlier. Like I might mark looking at the ball. I might mark like taking a step towards the ball. But if there's a dog that you know is a little bit more active, a little bit more enthusiastic about food and stuff, like Portia, for example, I think that I would probably wait a little bit until she was actually tired of the ball with her nose. If a dog has a long history or a cat has a long history of training behaviors that are a little bit closer to that, like, for example, I had trained Yoda. Do you guys remember Yoda? He was a leukemia positive cat that we had a while ago, but he knew a lot of different behaviors and he knew a lot of different paw behaviors. So he knew how to like wave high or give paw, and he knew how to target things. So eventually when I wanted to teach him to ring a bell with his paw, I used auto-shaping to get him to start interacting with the bell. And I waited until I was actually starting to get contact with the paw on top of the button to start marking, because I knew that he could go pretty far because of his experience and how interested he was in training in food and in exercises like that. But you know, Fox is a really new dog. My dog Fox is a really new dog. He's not very kind of motivated to do too much. He just wants to lie around, and he doesn't like balls. So I was pretty sure that he would not come up to the ball. So I started marking and rewarding when he made eye contact with the ball. Because for a good long while, he was just ignoring it. Does that make sense? It feels weird because you guys aren't here, so I can't like get this feedback from you.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah, what about Bruno and Beth? What's going on with Bruno?
So Bruno is not wanting to play at the moment. Here.
Does he want anything you have?
Here we go. No.
Okay. So that's okay.
I don't know. He's freaked out by something outside the room, so he's like not paying attention to anything or taking food.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So
He was doing really well, though.
So if I wanted Fox to actually start interacting with to actually start putting his mouth on the ball, I might actually have to go to shaping once he was targeting the ball with his nose.
You don't want to play.
Okay. So I'm gonna keep working on Fox. I think Mama Dog was really distracting him.
Okay.
Yes. He's starting to move his nose towards the ball. And like I said, I'm going to have very low criteria for turning the exercise into operant conditioning. Yes. Yes. I made a mistake there because I was like reaching up into the food before I showed him the ball. Okay, so he looked at the ball, so in that case I marked. So for a while you can actually straddle just plain operant conditioning, classical conditioning and operant conditioning. So sometimes I'll show him the ball and he just will not do anything, just kind of hangs out there. And in that case, I'll give him the treat without requiring him to do anything. And sometimes if he actually interacts with the ball, then I can mark, yes, and give him a treat. Okay, so another situation where we use auto shaping a lot in training is when we do the name game. Do you guys know how to play the name game? Yes. Anybody knows the name game?
I do
Am I
not.
muted?
Olivia? Who said that they did?
I do not.
That's
Okay.
Michelle.
It looked like Olivia was raising her hand, but I'm not sure. No?
Are we all muted? Can you hear us?
She's muted. Olivia's
No,
muted.
some people are muted, but if they're muted, it's because they've chosen to be muted. So I've unmuted everybody.
Oh, okay. Well, then I guess that means you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay, so the name game is just where you say the dog's name and then give them a treat, right? And that
Yeah.
way they learn their name.
Right. So you don't actually do anything. And you don't actually, you do things. The dog doesn't have to do things. So for example, if I was going to do the name game with Fox, which is actually, that's how I taught him to come, because he was pretty naughty and he used to run away when I first taught him, and there was no chance that he would come to me. So for a good while, I was just going, Fox, and then giving him a treat. I always say his name the same way if I'm calling him. Fox. And I would just do that. Like, he doesn't have to do anything. I just say his name. But at a certain point, he's going to start looking at me, or he's going to start coming up to me. And then I can start marking and rewarding that behavior. So that's a really, really common situation where we use auto shaping. Because we're taking advantage of the instinctive. Yes, good boy. All right. I feel like this is such a really cool idea, because it's, sometimes the behaviors that we want would take so long to just shape, or use prompting techniques or capture if the behavior's not something that the dog would do just naturally. But they're behaviors that would be really easy to auto shape. And at the same time, it helps us identify why we might be having problems in training. Like, for example, Suzanne and I have been having trouble getting our animals to go on mats, right? And these are animals that always like to go on mats. So why would they want to avoid the mat in training? It's because they're associating the mat with food, and they're associating the mat with lying down and not food. So when they start to associate the mat with food, they don't want to lie down on it because they don't think that lying down and food go together, right? So that's why you might have some trouble, and that's why you would probably avoid doing auto shaping with mats, at least for the whole process. You'd want to incorporate some other techniques. So I think that's pretty much it about auto shaping. It's really important at the same time as being a super simple process. Do you guys have any questions about it? Like, why don't you, I would love to hear about like any ideas that you might have where you could use auto shaping at the shelter. Like, I love Beth's idea of using auto shaping for the bordetella, for example. What else might you think of doing?
I was thinking doing auto shaping so that the pets would greet any stranger that came in the room, like come greet them maybe.
Yeah, and actually in our stranger ritual, we use auto shaping all the time, right? Because, gosh, I can think of so many reasons. So you know how when we introduce a dog who has stranger danger, first we toss the treat away, right? Let's say I was introducing Reggie to a stranger, and I would take that treat, I would have the stranger toss the treat way behind Reggie, you know, over and over. So why is it that Reggie comes closer and closer and closer to the person? It's because the person, they're starting to associate the person with food, and that's getting that Pavlovian conditioned approach, because they're associating the person with food, and they're going to start acting as if the person were food. So
what
yeah,
if they're not motivated by food? What if they're not motivated by food?
Well, I mean, every animal is motivated by food because they need to eat to survive. So in a lab setting, you would deprive them a little bit, or like I train dogs a lot more. Well, I mean, let's be real. I wasn't training them at all before, but now that I'm working for home, I'm training them close to their meal times because I know that they'll be more hungry at those times. And so dogs and cats and whatever animals, they're all going to be food motivated. But some animals might be more motivated by other things. Like, so for example, many of the cats that we work with eventually are more motivated by affection than food. And so for example, with the Frady cats, I find it very easy for them to meet new people because they start to associate the person with affection through me. So they start to associate, they're associating me already with affection, and then when I'm present, they feel more affectionate and they're more likely to show affection to strangers. Your question? I can't see her. That was Michelle, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I couldn't see you, so I wasn't sure if
I don't know. Melissa, it's Evelyn. I got my two kittens are awake right now.
Oh,
my Dobbs and Rue.
Oh yeah, they'd be really good at this.
They're actually, I think they're doing really well. I've got their worm toy that they love.
Yeah, so they're already touching it. They're doing much better.
Oh yeah, I think they love.
Are they?
They'll do anything for squeeze ups.
Yeah, so basically once you start getting that contact, so you got some movement towards the toy, but once you start getting contact, then you can start shaping towards an open mouth contact. So if you ever got if you had consistent contact and you started getting open mouth contact, then you can jackpot.
Rue just did it.
She
licked it.
Give it a huge jackpot and make a big deal about it.
Okay.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So you know what? It's like super sad that they just woke up when most of the class was over. They're already better than mine.
You're interested about the dog bark.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Yes.
I'm just mad about. What about you, Suzanne? Can you think of any novel applications for auto shaping? I can't hear.
Oh, I guess they're on mute.
They're all muted?
With
Sorry,
Chance.
we were just some more traits.
Oh, I was just asking if you could think of any ideas for auto shaping. Well, I can't think of it right now. I mean, I had a bunch of them and things that we already do and new things. But it's good to know because you can use it for training new behaviors, or you can use it to solve behavior problems.
I've actually been thinking a lot about what I do with Penny and Sully anytime I'm outside with them in the backyard. because I just I somehow one day found out that they love to chase me around the backyard for exercise, but it also brings them a lot of comfort. So instead of alarm barking at everyone, they choose to follow me around. And I definitely didn't plan any of that to happen, so that was not an intentional finding. But I guess I keep coming back to a question, or not a question, but just the idea that we should work to have an end goal in mind, because we don't necessarily know how the actual process is going to go, because it depends on what we find out that is natural to them, I guess. Especially because we keep encountering new animals at the shelter, right? So it's just constantly changing. Sorry, I have big trucks coming through.
Yeah, I mean, to a great extent, you know, mindfully using auto-shaping is really helpful. But you can also make some generalizations, right? Like, you know, like if an animal's really interested in food and it's like kind of arousal animals, then you could probably get more picking up behaviors more easily, right? Is that what you mean? Like that, how knowing animals really helps?
I knew what I wanted as an end goal, as in I wanted to help them not feel the need to alarm bark all the time, and help them start to learn to relax, even though the only time I really got them to relax is when I get to the shelter at 7 o'clock in the morning and there's nothing going on. But yeah, definitely after getting to understand that, you know, they clearly are much more motivated by what you were saying earlier, play, right? Or at least, yeah, just definitely a recreational activity that doesn't involve food. That seemed to be a lot more motivating for me to start getting things that I was looking for sure. So I guess somebody was asking, you know, what if they don't like food? Or I guess what if they're really scared of something and the food is just not as motivating to them in those moments.
Made some mistakes with Penny and Sully.
Mm-hmm.
Because they weren't like, you know, they didn't have a history of, you know, an aggression history, and they hadn't, they weren't really showing their reactivity until later on. So a lot of volunteers were handling them, and a lot of them them food. So it's not, you know, it's not always a good idea for people to be working with fearful animals and food, because eventually the food starts predicting the scary stuff. And I think that's starting to happen with them. Like the value of food has been like slowly going down with them. Because I remember that they were much, much more excited about food early on. And now it's a little bit harder, especially with Sully. Were you going to say something? I thought Suzanne was saying something.
Sorry, we've just got this wiggly puppy, so he's just causing a bit of chaos here.
Oh, you was going to say something, or maybe it was Olivia. Sorry. Well, I guess we'll just wrap it up for today, unless anybody has any questions. But if you do, just feel free to post them on the Facebook page.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thank you.
Work on Fox, so hopefully we'll get him to actually do something. Maybe Evelyn can show us her kittens.
Yeah, they did really well, actually.
I know, it's kind of like I'm so jealous because Fox really didn't do anything.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.